Other planet structures. Quote, "These babies are huge, sir, enormous. Oh my God, you wouldn't believe it. I'm telling you, there are other spacecraft out there, lined up on the far side of the crater edge. They're on the moon watching us." End quote. Apollo 11 astronaut Neil Armstrong reporting to Mission Control. The above exchange between Neil Armstrong and NASA was picked up and recorded by ham radio operators, bypassing frequencies used by TV and radio stations during the historic 1969 moon landing. The first man on the moon described other spacecraft lining the rim of the crater where the Eagle module had landed, and commented later, quote, "Their ships were far superior to ours, both in size and technology. Boy, they were big and menacing," end quote. Neil Armstrong also remarked that NASA was not the first to reach the moon. In 1979, Maurice Chatelain, former chief of NASA Communications Systems, confirmed that Neil Armstrong had indeed reported seeing 2 UFOs on the rim of a crater. Quote, "The encounter was common knowledge at NASA," end quote, he revealed, but, quote, "nobody has talked about it until now," end quote. Unfortunately, NASA has never talked publicly about the existence of UFOs. Edgar Mitchell, the 6th man to walk on the moon, and Mercury 7 pilot L. Gordon Cooper are 2 of the most outspoken astronauts. Edgar Mitchell claimed to have seen UFOs, and although he has never seen an ET, has described the Greys and the Roswell recovery. Says Mitchell, "Aliens are among us. Quote, I don't know how many or where or how they're doing it, but they've been observing us and here for quite some time. And we see these crafts all the time," end quote. Astronaut Cooper once said in front of the United Nations, quote, "ETs are real and they're here," end quote. Before he entered the space program, Cooper says his fighter squadron witnessed a disc-shaped craft in flight on a mission over Europe. In 1958, he was working at Edwards Air Force Base when he witnessed a small saucer land on the dry lake bed and then fly off at an incredible speed. Astronauts and ranking military personnel must keep quiet about seeing UFOs because if not, they risk 10 years in prison, a $10,000 fine, their status as heroes is compromised, public ridicule, and they may lose pay in allowances due or pay ever to become due. Suffice it to say, those who do speak out are risking a great deal when they go public. These are America's true heroes. Apollo astronauts speak of ET encounters. Apollo 11 astronauts Neil Armstrong and Edwin Buzz Aldrin both said they saw glowing orbs shortly after their historic July 21st, 1969 landing on the moon. Armstrong confirmed that the story was true, but refused to go into further detail beyond admitting that the CIA was behind the cover-up. The Apollo 11 astronauts landing on the moon noticed traces of activity, a surprise to them, and made comments which were instantly broadcast to the rapt audience participating in this historic landing worldwide and the general populace. Upon return, the astronauts were silenced in the usual manner, and all forthcoming broadcasts have never again been broadcast live. The astronauts continued to be under strict orders not to discuss their sightings. Apollo 11 astronaut Buzz Aldrin also commented that they had seen a spacecraft during their historic flight to land the first man on the moon. Quote, "There was something out there, close enough to be observed, and what could it be?" Now, obviously, the three of us weren't going to blurt out, "Hey, Houston, we've got something moving alongside of us and we don't know what it is, you know. Can you tell us what it is?" End quote. Soviet scientists were allegedly the first to confirm the Moon ET incident. Quote, "According to our information, the encounter was reported immediately after the landing of the module," end quote, said Dr. Vladimir Azhaza, a physicist and professor of mathematics at Moscow University. Quote, "Neil Armstrong relayed the message to mission control that two large mysterious objects were watching them after having landed near the moon module. But his message was never heard by the public because NASA censored it," end quote. But if there was no secrecy surrounding the mission, why has this sighting not been made public? A certain professor who wished to remain anonymous was engaged in a discussion with Neil Armstrong during a NASA symposium. He asked what really happened out there with Apollo 11. Armstrong replied, quote, "It was incredible. Of course, we had always known there was a possibility. The fact is, we were warned off by the Allies, aliens. There was never any question then of a space station or a moon city," end quote. The professor inquired into Armstrong's meaning of warned off. Armstrong replied, quote, "I can't go into details except to say that their ships were far superior to ours, both in size and technology. Boy, were they big and menacing. No, there is no question of a space station. NASA was committed at the time and couldn't risk panic on Earth," end quote. Years later, astronaut L. Gordon Cooper testified to a United Nations committee that one of the Apollo 11 astronauts actually witnessed a UFO on the ground. Astronaut Mitchell on the Apollo 11, Apollo 14 answered the question about his feelings after a successful return from the moon in 1971. Quote, "My neck still aches as I had to constantly turn my head around because we felt we were not alone there. We had no choice but pray," end quote. The moon. Before we get into the structures on the moon, we should examine several lunar enigmas that still pose big problems for scientists. For starters, why is there a dark side that never faces the Earth? Or how did the moon come to appear in Earth's orbit? What are the principles of its revolving around the Earth? Why does it not rotate around like all the other planets? Why is it shrinking? How to explain the bottomless craters? And why do the mascons, or higher concentrations of mass found in the Marias, cause fluctuations in gravity that have never satisfactorily been explained? The moon is not the dead planet we've been led to believe. There is also the nagging evidence that the moon has an atmosphere and contains pockets of water. What's going on up there? The moon is unlike any other planetary satellite in our solar system. Our moon is older than the Earth by nearly 800,000 years, according to scientific dating. The Earth is thought to be around 4.6 billion years old, while rocks from the moon were found to be around 5.3 billion years old, and the dust the rocks were found in are thought to be about 1 billion years older than that. This information conflicts with the theory that the moon was produced by a collision the Earth had with another body early in its history. Also unusual is that our moon is the only moon in the solar system that has a stationary, near-perfect circular orbit. From any point on the surface of Earth, only one side of the moon is visible. Towers 2 kilometers high and uniform banding suggests that the moon was somehow constructed as an artificial satellite. Similar to the irrigation canals on Mars, there is also evidence of terraforming and terraces on the moon. Excuse me. One of the biggest academic enigmas about the moon is how it is apparently in the wrong orbit for its size. Such a claim would presumably be based on its assumed density. Technical reports claim that the moon has a density of 3.3 as compared with 5.5 for the Earth. Astronomical data indicates that the internal regions of the moon are less dense than the outer, giving rise to the inevitable speculation that it could be partly hollow. An interesting fact suggests the moon is a hollow object, is confirmed when a meteor strikes the moon. It then rings like a bell. Astronomers knew this, and when the Apollo 12 crew landed on the moon for the second mission, they intentionally crashed the lunar module ascent stage into the surface of the moon. After returning to the orbiter, the module impact with the moon caused their seismic equipment to register a continuous reverberation for over an hour. These results were repeated during the Apollo 13 mission during the third stage impact, which caused the moon to reverberate for over 3 hours. This leads to the speculation that maybe the moon is not hollow from natural causes, but was cored out as a result of an extensive mining operation. Hollow moon researchers say this is proof that the interior of the moon was extracted using artificial means. They note the moon has a surface shell of only about 30 kilometers thick, composed mainly of metal. This would also explain the extreme difficulty astronauts had when drilling down a few inches into the moon's Marias, and that when the drill bit was pulled out, metal shavings were visible. Moon rocks were found to contain brass, mica, titanium, and elements uranium-236 and neptunium-237, an element not previously found in nature. Moon bases. Whistleblower William Cooper, a former naval intelligence officer, reported that not only do alien moon bases exist, but the U.S. naval intelligence community refers to the largest moon base as Luna. He also reported the U.S. secret space program has bases on the moon and Mars called Adam and Eve, respectively. NASA and other space-related agencies know that there is a huge mining operation going on there, and the backside is where the aliens keep their huge motherships. Cooper claims the trips to Earth are made in similar, quote, flying saucers. The alien base Luna is located on the far side, or dark side of the moon, that never faces Earth. A base, a mining operation using very large machines, and the very large alien craft described in sighting, reported as mother ships, exist there, according to Cooper. These were also seen, reported on, and even filmed by the Apollo astronauts, but of course this information has never been made public. The NASA Clementine mission was launched in 1994 to map the moon. When the images were released, some objects were clearly masked out. What can be seen are mushroom-shaped buildings, tall objects, towers, and extensive mining operations. There are dozens of known bases on the moon, especially on crater Kepler, where there are 4 domes, mining machines, pyramids, tanks, towers, a Christian cross, and even a World War II era bomber plane called the B-24 Liberator. The secret human base on the moon has been operating since 1954, according to Cooper. Our human base on the moon is a combined effort between the USA, UK, and Russia. This base was built using technology given to us by the Greys. ET moon bases. In the mid-1970s, the CIA-funded Stanford Research Institute, SRI, tasked some of their psychic remote viewers to investigate specific moon coordinates. What they discovered were major ET bases on the backside of the moon, containing structures, spherical buildings, towers, and massive structures, some a half-kilometer in size. Other locations, such as Ocular Luna, revealed major mineral mining operations. The crater named Darwin has changed in appearance several times over the decades, as if huge amounts of soil are being pushed around. There also appears to be an atmosphere on the far side of the moon. Astronauts have even reported seeing clouds in the atmosphere of the moon. Elsewhere on the surface of the moon are active lunar city bases, along with some that are abandoned, which stretch along for many kilometers. Huge transparent domes are presumed to be covering massive basements with numerous tunnels and other constructions. A transparent dome that rises above the crater edge was discovered near the crater Copernicus. The dome is unusual in that it glows white and blue from inside. Another rather unusual object, which is strange even for the moon, was discovered in the upper part of the factory area in Copernicus. A disk of about 50 meters in diameter stands on a square basement surrounded with walls. In the picture, close to the rhombi, there can also be seen a dark round embrasure in the ground that resembles an entry into an underground bunker. There is a regular rectangular area between the factory and the crater Copernicus that is 300 meters wide and 400 meters long. Crater Copernicus is 3.8 kilometers deep and 93 kilometers in diameter. According to researcher David Hatcher-Childress, the crater Gassendi and dozens of others have been observed with light emanating from the crater floor, called transient lunar light phenomenon. He also reports pyramids and obelisks rising from the moon's surface. A double beam of lunar transient phenomenon can also be seen in a crater of Ceres. located in the asteroid belt between Mars and Jupiter. Some partly destroyed objects on the lunar surface cannot be placed among natural geological formations, as Mother Nature never creates perfect 90-degree angles, straight lines, or perfect dome shapes. Out of the ordinary objects are of complex organization and geometrical structure. In the upper part of the Rima Hadley, not far from the location where the Apollo 15 module had landed near Hadley, really, a construction surrounded with a tall D-shaped wall was discovered. Mysterious terrace-shaped excavations of the rock have been discovered near the Tycho crater. The concentric hexahedral excavations and the tunnel entry at the terrace side cannot be results of natural geological processes. Instead, they look very much like open cast mines. Curiously, no high-powered, nationally funded telescope is allowed to photograph the near surface of the moon. Apollo 10 astronauts took a unique picture titled AS10-32-4822 of several anomalous objects on the lunar landscape, including one called the Castle, which rises to the height of 14 kilometers and casts a distinct shadow on the lunar surface. The object seems to be consisting of several cylindrical units and a large conjunctive unit. An internal porous structure of the castle is clearly seen in one of the pictures, leaving an impression that some parts of the object are transparent. It is located in the lunar region between Rima Hyginus and Boscovich, but the image currently on the NASA website has been retouched and does not show the original features. In all, uniquely different base structure artifacts have been discovered in at least 44 regions of the moon. From these photos and reports, it appears that the Earth's moon, along with the asteroid belt, is used as a permanent base of operations for the domain forces of the gray and draconian aliens. The Apollo astronauts and other humans have spotted their structures. The asteroid belt. The asteroid belt is composed of small and large smashed pieces of a planet that once existed between Mars and Jupiter. Numerous irregularly shaped bodies called asteroids or minor planets occupied the orbit where a planet existed before being destroyed billions of years ago. The asteroid belt serves as a good low-gravity jumping-off point for incoming spacecraft traveling toward the center of our galaxy. There appear to be artificial satellites in the asteroid belt that act as platforms for the takeoff and landing of spacecraft. It is used as a galactic jump between the Milky Way and adjoining galaxies. There are not any other useful planets at this end of the galaxy that can serve as a good galactic entering spot for incoming transport and other ships. The asteroid belt beyond Mars is very small, but it is an important location for the gray aliens in this part of space. Actually, some of the orbiting objects in our solar system are very valuable for use as low-gravity space stations. Interstellar travelers are interested primarily in the low-gravity satellites in this solar system, which consist mainly of the side of the moon facing away from Earth and the asteroid belt, and to a lesser degree, Mars and Venus. Dome structures synthesized from gypsum or underground bases covered by electromagnetic force screens are constructed to house the grays. Venus. Venus and Earth are often called twins because they are similar in size, mass, density, composition, and gravity. Venus has a dense atmosphere consisting mainly of carbon dioxide with clouds of sulfuric acid, and scientists have only detected trace amounts of water in the atmosphere. The atmosphere is heavier than that of any other planet, leading to a surface pressure over 90 times that of Earth. Not only are conditions on Venus infernal, but an ancient name for Venus was Lucifer. This name did not carry any fiendish connotations, however. Lucifer means light bringer. And when seen from Earth, Venus is brighter than any other planet, or even any star in the night sky, because of its highly reflective clouds and its closeness to our planet and the sun. The atmosphere of Venus, the second planet from the sun, is much denser and hotter than that of Earth. The Venusian atmosphere supports thick, persistent clouds made of sulfuric acid, which make optical observations of the surface very difficult. Venus is roughly the same size as Earth, but it has a thick atmosphere dominated by carbon dioxide. With an atmospheric pressure 92 times that of Earth, a waterless and volcano-riddled surface, and a surface temperature of 740 degrees Celsius, Venus has never been considered a serious target of research into the possibility of extraterrestrial life, but our view of extraterrestrial holds to the kind of life we are familiar with in our third-dimensional reality. The atmosphere of Venus is in a state of vigorous circulation and superrotation. The whole atmosphere circles the planet in just 4 days, a superrotation, which is a short time compared with the sidereal rotational period of 243 days. However, this atmospheric state is incapable of preventing the loss of water, which is continuously blown away by the solar wind through the induced magneto tail. The winds supporting superrotation blow as fast as 100 meters per second. Only the ionosphere and a thin induced magnetosphere separate Venusian atmosphere from outer space and serve to shield it from the solar wind, which usually does not penetrate very deeply. Venus's anticyclonic structures, called polar vortexes, are located near the poles, and in them the air moves downward. Each vortex is double-eyed and shows a characteristic S-shaped pattern of clouds. Venus has an opposite rotation to the other planets, suggesting it is an interloper planet that entered the solar system independently. Despite the harsh conditions on the surface at about a 50 to 65 kilometer level, above the surface of the planet, the atmospheric pressure and temperature is nearly the same as that of Earth. This makes its upper atmosphere the most Earth-like area in the solar system, even more so than the atmosphere of Mars. Venus is considered Earth-like due to the similarity in pressure, temperature, and the fact that breathable air is a lifting gas on Venus, much in the same way that helium is a lifting gas on Earth. The information about the surface features on Venus has been obtained exclusively by radar imaging, conducted from the ground, and Venera 1516, and the Magellan space probes. The main atmosphere gases on Venus are carbon dioxide and nitrogen, which make up 96.5 and 3.5 of all molecules. Other chemical compounds are present only in trace amounts. Venus has a very dense, hot, and heavy atmosphere of sulfuric acid clouds. Although deadly to most Earth creatures, there are a few life forms on Earth that could endure an atmospheric environment like Venus. The Greys and other advanced races reportedly use the planet Venus as a defensive position against other space forces. Also, the Nordic-looking benevolent ETs that repeatedly contacted George Adamski claimed they too live on Venus. His Venusian visitors stated they lived in underground cities, thus not being exposed to hostile conditions on the surface. CIA pilot John Lear also believes advanced civilizations exist on Mars, on Venus. Supporting this claim of intelligent ET life, Leonid Kasformelity, an astronomer based at the Space Research Institute of Russia's Academy of Sciences, analyzed Venus photographs taken by a Russian landing probe during a 1982 mission to explore the heavily acid-clouded planet. Kasformelity announced in January 2012 that Russian photographs depict objects resembling, quote, a disk, a black flap, and a scorpion, end quote. He also cautioned that the object seemed to, quote, emerge, fluctuate, and disappear, end quote, in different photographs taken from a variety of vantage points. The Red Planet. Mars has fascinated humanity since prehistoric times with notions of canals and cities on the Red Planet. The notion of little green men in Martian society really got its start in the 19th century with Italian astronomer Giovanni Schiaparelli. He noted canali on the visible surface of Mars. American Percival Lowell took the idea much farther from 1885 to 1898 with a series of 3 books detailing his observations of the Martian surface and the intelligent civilization that he believed existed there. The atmosphere of Mars is relatively thin, and the atmospheric pressure on the surface varies from around 0.03 kPa on the peak of Olympus Mons to over 1.155 kPa in the depths of the Hellas Planitia, with a mean surface level pressure of 0.6 kPa, compared to Earth's 101.3 kPa. The atmosphere on Mars consists of 95% carbon dioxide, 3% nitrogen, 1.6% argon, and contains traces of oxygen, water, and methane. Curiously, methane is emitted more frequently in the hemisphere of Mars when experiencing its summer. The atmosphere is quite dusty, giving the Martian sky a tawny color during windstorms. But if calm, the Mars atmosphere looks clear and blue, much like the Earth's sky when seen from the surface. Mars is much like Earth. According to tentative astrophysical theories and reports of alien communications, life once thrived on Mars in a similar way to that on Earth, and quite possibly even seeded life on Earth via crashed meteorites. There is so much we have not been told about Mars and the other objects in our solar system. However, in its long history, Mars experienced two major catastrophes. One by ice, from which life did reemerge, and one by fire, from which it did not. One of the unexplained discoveries about Mars is the presence of a xenon isotope in the atmosphere and an abundance of uranium and thorium on the surface. Experts posit that these elements are the products of a natural fission reaction. The ore bodies containing these oxides were infiltrated by water, causing a thermal neutron reaction with fallout that rained down and caused the end of life on Mars. Debris patterns can be seen radiating from a site in the northwest of Mare Acidilium. One hypothesis states that the event was probably triggered by a change in groundwater distribution related to a global cooling event, and that it would have produced an energy release equal to the impact of a 70-kilometer diameter asteroid. There is considerable evidence suggested by mainstream astronomers that Mars was once just like Earth. But something catastrophic happened that wiped out its life long ago. Clouds on Mars show that an atmosphere still exists. On Mars, there are forests, scrub brushes, water reservoirs, lakes, ice caps, and evidence of an ancient civilization, originally secretly named by NASA a Martian, quote, Inca city, end quote, from the images that came back from Mariner 9. There are dried up oceans, irrigated farms, fossil evidence, skulls, and more modern structures. There appears to be a transportation system of tubes that circle the planet above ground and beneath. For years, NASA released photos of Mars with a reddish-tinged sky and rusty red landscape. This view prevailed until independent researchers and Mars missions undertaken by the European Space Agency, the ESA, revealed that the Martian sky actually looks very similar to Earth's sky, and the Martian landscape pretty much resembles the pale reddish colored terrain of the American Southwest. Armchair astronaut discovers a Mars space station. An armchair astronaut discovered a space station on Mars using Google Mars, as reported by Mail Online on June 7, 2011. But the video he posted was removed a week later. The video has since resurfaced. David Martinez claims to have found evidence of intelligent life on Mars and has posted a video showing a long cylindrical base he named Biostation Alpha. He did not discover it with a telescope. Instead, he claims to have randomly uncovered the picture while scanning the surface of the planet one day using Mars surface imagery available via Google Mars. Describing the structure as living quarters with red and blue stripes on it, to the untrained eye, it looks like nothing more than a white cylinder with what appears to be connected domes on an otherwise unblemished landscape. He even lists the coordinates 4917.73 north, 2933.06.53 west, so others can view the anomaly for themselves. Martine's YouTube video of the Biostation Alpha went viral with over 1 million hits since he first posted it in May 2011. According to his calculations, quote, "It's very unusual in that it's quite large. Over 700 feet long and 150 feet wide. It looks like it's a cylinder or made up of cylinders," end quote. He goes on to speculate, quote, "It could be a power station, or it could be a biological containment, or it could be a glorified garage. Hope it's not a weapon. Whoever put it up there had a purpose, I'm sure. I couldn't imagine what the purpose was. I couldn't imagine why anybody would want to live on Mars. It could be a way station for weary space travelers. It could also belong to NASA. I don't know that they would admit that. I don't know if they could pull off such a project without all the people seeing all the material going up there. I sort of doubt NASA has anything to do with this," quote. He concludes. Mars bases. The infamous face on Mars, appearing to show eyes and teeth, was discovered by the Viking 1 probe in 1976. It was quickly debunked as a quirk of geography, which threw shadows over a small hill in the Cydonia region of Mars, making the inanimate rock look like a carved face. The large face covers an area about 3.6 kilometers on a side. The picture was heralded as proof of an alien civilization by some, but was dismissed as a mere trick of the light by scientists at NASA. Cydonia lies in the planet's northern hemisphere in a transitional zone between the heavily cratered regions to the south and relatively smooth plains to the north. Some planetologists, that's a hard one. Some planetologists believe that the northern plains may once have been ocean beds and that Cydonia could have been a coastal zone. Also located in the Cydonia region next to the infamous face are several pyramids, 4 times the size of Cheops Pyramid in Egypt, city structures, and agricultural terracing. According to alien contactees, the Dracos once had a large underground base on Mars, used as their primary control center within our solar system. Their base on Mars is over 1 million years old and was last active over 300,000 years ago. The base is over 100 square kilometers in size and is located beneath the surface location on Mars known as Tempe Terra. Supposedly, Mars currently supports a population of 600 million entities, most of whom are human-looking in appearance. An intelligent civilization lives under the surface of Mars, and this civilization is involved in an ongoing secret liaison program with agencies of the US government, including the CIA. An active base on Mars contains Earth humans and human-looking ETs working side by side. There are at least 43 different types of human-like beings operating jointly, each of whom has evolved on different worlds. The vast majority of them look quite similar to Earth humans, though they could range from 1 meter tall up to 4 meters in height. Of the 270,000 personnel who work at one base, only 10,000 were born on or descended from people on Earth. This base is located underneath Mars' expansive Utopia Planitia, which is an ancient seabed. Transport from the Earth is by two means: portal stargates for personnel and small items, or spacecraft for larger items of freight. The secret U.S. space fleet that transports items and personnel back and forth is codenamed SOLAR WARDEN. Other Earth travelers arrive on Mars via portal technology that allows them to step into an elevator-like room on Earth and step out at the base on Mars. Teleportation trips are made via a jump room, once located at a CIA and Hughes aircraft facility in El Segundo, California. The most famous person alleged to have used the jump room to Mars was yet to be President Barack Obama in the early 1980s when he was a student at Occidental College in Los Angeles. Thousands of others have passed back and forth since then, and now some who were once part of the Mars training program in the 1980s are recounting their red planet experiences with Barry Soetoro. Readers can access internet sites on these issues and draw their own conclusions. Orbiting Mars, the moon Phobos has an, quote, unusual monolith, end quote, as described by astronaut Buzz Aldrin. He described it once in an interview, quote, "We should go boldly where man has not gone before. Fly by the comets, visit asteroids, visit the moon of Mars. There's a monolith there, which is a very unusual structure on this potato-shaped object that goes around Mars once every 7 hours. When people find out that, they're going to say, 'Who put that there?' The universe put it there. If you choose, God put it there," end quote. Astrophysicist Dr. Isif Samuilovich Skylovsky calculated the orbital motion of Martian satellite Phobos. Quote, "Considering the extremely rarefied Martian atmosphere at this altitude, Phobos should have very low average density, less than any Earth cloud," end quote. That could not be, however, or it would have dispersed long ago. Therefore, the only way its carefully calculated attributes could be reconciled is that it is, quote, "is a hollow, empty body resembling an empty tin can. It must have an artificial origin, some kind of spaceship," end quote. Another Russian astronomer, Dr. Cherman Struve, agreed that its shape and behavior could not be due to natural causes. He also observed Phobos as changing its speed from time to time. Amnesia mechanisms. Some of the structures on Venus, Mars, and the Earth's moon are known to be electronic monitoring points and force screens designed to detect and capture wandering spirits, as when the human spirit departs the body at death. These sentient spirits are captured, then brainwashed using extreme electronic force in order to maintain the Earth's population in a state of perpetual amnesia. Further population controls are installed through the use of long-range electronic devices via thought control mechanisms. These stations are still in operation, and they are extremely difficult to attack or destroy. The Black Knight satellite is an ancient alien artifact in Earth's orbit that may also play a role in the amnesia of Earthlings. Theoretically, if the amnesia mechanisms being used against Earth could be broken entirely, humans could potentially regain all of their memory over a long period of time, including past life recalls. Some esoteric scholars speculate that our spirits have been deposited on Earth from all over the galaxy, adjoining galaxies, and from planetary systems including Sirius, Aldebaran, the Pleiades, Orion, Draconis, and countless others. There are spirits on Earth from unnamed races, civilizations, cultural backgrounds, and planetary environments. Each of these various populations once had their own languages, belief systems, moral values, religious beliefs, training, and unknown and untold histories. These newer entities are mixed together with earlier inhabitants of Earth who came from another star system more than 400,000 years ago to establish the civilizations of Atlantis and Lemuria. These civilizations vanished beneath the tidal waves caused by a planetary polar shift many thousands of years before the current prison population started to arrive. The early humans from these star systems were the source of the original races of Earth, beginning in Australia and the Far East. The force that put these devices into place long ago does not want the humans of Earth to suspect that they have been captured, transplanted to Earth, and brainwashed. But don't expect NASA or any other space agency to confess the existence of structures on other planets anytime soon. Richard Hoagland, a specialist for lunar and Mars artifacts, says that NASA continues to veil photo materials before they are published in public catalogs and files. NASA also fabricates digital retouching or can partially refocus images while in the process of copying. Some investigators, Hoagland among them, suppose an extraterrestrial race has used the moon and other planets as a terminal station during their activity on the Earth. These suggestions are confirmed by legends and myths invented independently by different cultures on Earth for millennia. The Sun and other planets. Although not a planet and with no known structures, the Sun has many fascinating features. The Sun is not a series of thermonuclear explosions as we have been led to believe. The Sun is an electromagnetic sphere that reacts with the electromagnetic fields of certain planets, that is, virtually all the planets in our solar system. In the early 21st century, something weird happened to the Sun. Normally, our star, like the Earth itself, has a north and south magnetic pole. But for nearly a month, beginning in March 2000, the Sun's south magnetic pole faded, and a north pole emerged to take its place. The Sun had two north poles. NASA has released a wealth of information providing that climate change is occurring on every planet in our solar system, including the Sun. They simply never put all the pieces together at once and invariably blame it on seasons in each individual case. When we survey the data itself, we clearly see that the Sun and all the planets are becoming brighter, hotter, and more magnetic. Our Sun is also a portal. a stargate, and as such can be used for interdimensional space travel. Physicist Nassim Haramein contends that NASA stereo data of giant solar UFOs prove that extraterrestrial civilizations access our solar system via a stargate within the sun when using large vehicle spacecraft, with some ships arriving as large as small planets. According to Mr. Haramein, every sun contains a black hole singularity. All other distant suns of the same classification as our sun are also natural stargates. In order for a spaceship to enter into our sun as a portal or stargate, each ship must do a few things. The craft must change its frequency to match the vibratory rate of the sun. It must be attuned to a fourth dimensional vibratory frequency and rate, and it must also input into their ship's navigation system the sun's unique signature code. Each major celestial body has one, and this signature identification code is much like a GPS location device. Other features of our solar system are also fascinating. Firstly, all planets are not orbs, but instead are spheres. Not only the Earth, but also the Moon, Saturn, Jupiter, and the Sun itself are spherical. Gaseous planetary bodies, like the largest planets of our solar system and the Sun, cannot generate a magnetic field, yet they all have one. All the solar system's outer planets emit more energy than they receive from the Sun, especially the most geologically active moon, Io, rotating around Jupiter. Neptune, one of the farthest planets away from the Sun, has an atmosphere remarkably similar to the Earth's atmosphere. A spinning planetary body in formation has zero gravity in its center. Therefore, mass accumulates where gravitational and centrifugal forces are balanced within the area of the spinning matter. And that form would be a sphere with openings at the top and bottom, like a hurricane of matter in space. Not as a solid body with a solid center. The center has zero gravity. If planets were formed from cosmic dust, which began to condense into a body like the Earth, and then the angular momentum would still continue to increase. But it does not. Instead, the Earth's spin is steady, not slowing down or speeding up. Larger planets with more mass should spin more slowly than smaller planets with less mass. Yet, they do not. The largest planet, Jupiter, spins faster, once every 10 hours, a lot faster than Mercury, which is just a tiny fraction of the size of Jupiter and needs 58 Earth days for one spin around its axis. Mercury is very similar to the Moon, with seemingly anomalous objects found in its craters. The Milky Way. The spiral arms of our Milky Way galaxy contain interstellar matter, diffuse nebulae, young stars, and open star clusters emerging from this matter. The bulge component of our galaxy consists of old stars and contains the globular star clusters. Our galaxy has probably about 200 globulars, of which we know of about 150. These globular clusters are strongly concentrated toward the galactic center. Our solar system is thus situated within the outer regions of this galaxy, well within the disk, and only about 20 light years above the equatorial symmetry plane, towards the direction of the galactic North Pole. The Milky Way is about 28,000 light years from the galactic center. 3 studies released in January 2012 in the journal Nature and at the American Astronomical Society's conference in Austin, Texas, project about 1.6 planets per star system on average. That would be about 160 billion planets in the Milky Way galaxy alone. This estimate would represent approximately 1.6 billion planets in life zone orbits, or the Goldilocks zone, which is considered not too hot and not too cold for life to exist. Only Earth and Mars are situated within our sun's life zone orbit. Another estimate puts the figure at 200 billion stars in the Milky Way galaxy, and with about 500 billion galaxies in the observable universe, the estimated number of habitable planets is bound to go up, way up. With the odds so high in its favor, it would now seem that any argument which states that there is no other intelligent life in the Milky Way galaxy, let alone the universe, is about as substantive as arguing that the Earth is flat. If there is other life out there, then it is reasonable that there are other intelligent and highly advanced life forms. This would lead directly to a fundamental question. Has intelligent life from elsewhere visited Earth? We would need to take a look for any evidence on Earth or in our solar system for such visitations. When we do this, as we've just done, we find that the evidence is everywhere, both in the present and the past, both on Earth and off planet. What we don't have is a government in the USA willing to discuss the matter. Thus, it is time for us to mature as a species and demand that government leaders take their heads out of the sand and reveal what they already know about these visitations and the agendas involved. If they will not do this, they must be replaced by leaders who will.